The Chinese blockbuster everyone's talking about starts now.
你愿与老夫一同出征否？
战家，我最擅长。我乃哪吒三太子。
瞧，一身正气。
Well, I'm here with Carl Zha. Carl, welcome again. This is Alex with WCICO. And of course, when I want information about China, instead of going to the encyclopedias, I go to Carl Zha. Carl Zha, we talked about this record-breaking animation coming out of China. A lot of hoopla about it, a lot of big smoke about it, thrown around. Hey, this video has outperformed Star Wars. I mean, it's rattling a lot of people, just like TikTok was. Let's talk about it. Tell me what you know about it.
Well, this is actually the second installment of Ne Zha series. This is Ne Zha 2. Ne Zha 1 came out 2019. It's a Chinese animation film. And in fact, if you go to Google and search Ne Zha, the first thing that come up is a Wikipedia article linked to the 2019 Ne Zha film. The Ne Zha is actually the name of the protagonist, who also happened to be a Chinese deity. Many Chinese grew up with the story of Ne Zha. He's one of the favorite kind of the mythological heroes of China. And Ne Zha's story it's actually quite similar to the other Chinese cultural hero people might have heard about, that of Wukong, Sun Wukong. In fact, Ne Zha appears in the Journey to the West. He makes a cameo appearance in the Journey to the West. But he also appeared in the Ming Dynasty novel Investiture of the Gods, which just recently also turned into a blockbuster film, Creation of God series. Ne Zha plays a role in that as well. And so everyone is very excited when they first made an animated film about the Ne Zha mythology, because like the more young Chinese nowadays are very eager to explore their past, their heritage. And the Ne Zha story, just a story that everybody grew up with. And it's a story of a rebel. One thing that Ne Zha shared the very similarity with the Monkey King, Sun Wukong, is that Ne Zha is a born rebel. He is so in the Chinese mythology, the Chinese picture, the heaven is set up very similarly like the way society is set up on earth. There's a bureaucratic government. There's a heavenly court ruling over by the heavenly emperor. And according to the early story of Ne Zha, I'm not giving away too much spoiler because the Ne Zha film is a reinterpretation of the old mythology. I'm giving you the old mythological context, what everyone in China is already familiar with of the Ne Zha story. When you go to the film, you will see a whole brand new story because this is a innovation. They innovated and then create a new story based on Ne Zha. But Ne Zha himself, originally Ne Zha was from the pantheon of Buddhist gods that was brought over to China. That's why his name sounds kind of odd to the Chinese, because it was originally a transliteration of like Sanskrit name. But as all with everything, Ne Zha, when he came to China, he became Chinese. He became indigenized and Sinicized, and the Chinese people made him create a whole new background story for him. So as a child grew up in China, only knew Ne Zha as a Chinese god, and the story goes that back in the Song Dynasty, one of the earliest Chinese dynasties, Ne Zha was born to a general of Qiantang Pass. But Ne Zha he had a special birth because like his mother was pregnant with him for like 3 years. It was really weird. And when he was born, he was not a baby, but a ball of flesh, and so his father thought it was a monster, was gonna chug it away or kill it, and then when the father strike it with the sword and burst out Ne Zha, and the Ne Zha grew very fast, and so traditionally Ne Zha was always depicted as a child or a youth, and he grew up very rebellious, and the story I grew up with Ne Zha is actually different from the traditional story and different from the story presented in Feng Shen Yan Yi, or the Investiture of Gods, Ming Dynasty level novel. That's because the Ne Zha story have evolved over the years. The most popular tale of Ne Zha people grew up with is probably from the early Chinese animated films in like the 1980s, 1970s, and the story they read. So the one I grew up with was that Ne Zha was, his dad was a powerful general, governor of the town, tasked with protecting the people, and Ne Zha was just he was the youngest son, and he had a lot of free time exploring, and the town of Qiantang Pass is situated on the coast, and there's a lot of flooding, and the flooding, of course, is caused by the dragons in the sea. And now in the traditional Chinese folk stories, they believe spirits resides in like the mountains, in the rivers. They have mountain gods, river gods, and in the sea, of course, the sea gods, usually the sea dragons. So the people of Qiantang Pass, to pacify the sea dragons, they would make sacrifice. They would sacrifice a pair of virgins, a virgin boy and a girl, to throw them into the sea to appease the dragon gods. Now, Ne Zha learned about that, and he was like, no, you're not gonna do that, and this is like, let's not. What kind of gods are you appeasing here? And then the son of the dragon king, Albin, he appeared, and he challenged Ne Zha for interfering into this yearly ritual. And Ne Zha like, well, what kind of monster are you? Eating little innocent children. And the son of the dragon king didn't know how powerful Ne Zha was, and they got into a fight, and Ne Zha kills the son of the dragon. He stripped him. He pull out his spine, strip him, and then made a belt from the hide of the dragon. And this really pissed off the Dragon King, because he lost his precious son. So he threatened to flood the town of Qiantang Pass if the governor Li Jin do not hand over Ne Zha, his youngest son, to him. And Ne Zha was outraged. It's like, what? Why are we appeasing these monsters? I can take him out, no problem. But Li Jin, to protect the people, he was very conflicted. One side is son, one is the people. So in the end, Li Jin decided Ne Zha must be punished, and so Ne Zha he's very angry at this unfair treatment by his own father. Then he said, you know what? I owe you my flesh. You are my father because you gave birth to me. I owe my flesh to you, but I will just give back to you. I'll just give back what you gave me. So he started cutting himself up and give it back to his dad. So of course, he died in the process. But the gods were moved by Ne Zha's spirit, so they give him a Chinese mythological plastic surgery, reconstructive surgery out of lotus. They used lotus to shape a new body for Ne Zha. So Ne Zha now became even more powerful, and his father couldn't contain him. The dragons couldn't contain him, and in the end, like the other heavenly gods, because he's still very angry at his father for not dealing with the dragons, but trying to discipline his son. So the heavenly king, they granted his father a pagoda. So with that pagoda, that can hold Ne Zha in check, just like in the Journey of the West, the town monk was giving a headband to put on the monkey to control the monkey. So Ne Zha is always a very rebellious character, very much loved. in Chinese mythology. But the animated film was a retelling of the story, but
Okay.
it's a different story, but it's still kind of based on like the struggle between Ne Zha and the dragons. But it's a completely new tale. So the first time when I saw Ne Zha 1, I was pleasantly surprised because I was amazed how well it's done. It's a very uniquely Chinese animation style and based on Chinese mythology, but yet fresh because it's a new story. And it was an immense success. So this led to Ne Zha 2. This is the sequel. And this
Got it.
one is even bigger story, even bigger blockbuster than the last. As you already mentioned, it broke $1 billion in China. This is the largest single market office box ever in the world. And it's an animated film. This is like the top grossing movie in the Chinese New Year this year. And this is now it kind of also shows kind of the power of the Chinese consumer market. Now, this is the reason all the Hollywood executives are trying to find way to enter this market. But they, Chinese film used to be dominated. All the top box office used to be dominated by Hollywood movies.
Yeah, go ahead. Let me jump in here. So here are some of the other records that this has broken. Highest grossing non-American film of all time. First film to ever hit 1 billion box office in a single market. Highest grossing non-American animated feature of all time. Highest grossing Chinese film, live action or animated of all time. Biggest 5-day opening of animated film. Now, I don't want to confuse people here because how the American box office works, it's very crafty, okay? They push pretty much who they want to go to number one. They have that total control over the theaters. Depending if you're Paramount, Warner, Disney, all the big names, they will spend half or maybe even more of the film's budget just on promotion and marketing. And that means when you hear open nationwide or opened in maximum capacity in the theaters, I think there's 4,000 or 5,000 in the North American market, they will hammer that show into the market, come out with a big blockbuster opening, and bang, it's there. But here's the interesting part now. Possibly, and we have to look into this a little bit deeper, was there any financial, and I'm not for a moment underestimating how the American market works. Just because they got their ass walloped here, pardon my language, in China, don't underestimate how these film production studios and how they work. They actually go to film festivals, they find a great film, they buy the rights to it, and they refilm it again and throw out the old ones. So possibly with this, some of the animation could have been leaked, just like with any business, whether it's AI, DeepSeek, whatever. This could have leaked and said, whoa, this studio is hot. It's doing well. It's promoting a story that's big. Possibly Hollywood got some of their studios involved. Possibly they own 5% or 10%. Who knows? We don't know. Those numbers will come out, and maybe they'll come out in quarterly reports later. But I'm hearing only limited release in America. And that says something to me very clear. That market, even though we're ranting and cheering here in China, when it's done $1 billion here, it should be open for worldwide or at least American-wide distribution. And I read in deep here that they are only going to start it in selected theaters, is what they said. Now, that's not really giving this film a fair shot to really hit the headlines like, the ones that follow it. Now, here's where we do have some Chinese getting a little bit more crafty on the media side. Breaks decade-long box office record held by Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Now, as a kid growing up, Star Wars, 1977, every kid was in the movie theater, bottom line. If somebody missed Star Wars in 1977, either they weren't born, they weren't old enough to open up their eyes, but if they're old enough to open up their eyes and breathe, they saw the original Star Wars. That thing ripped. Now, compared to the sales and adjusted inflation, it's a big number. But my understanding here is they're saying decade-long box office record held by Star Wars in China. Okay. Now, if it's going to be given a fair shot, and I'll put up a graph here, what it did here, and I'll just show you here. That's the China box office graph there. You can see in the red, that's where this film is going. So of course it's rocking and rolling. But my issue is Hollywood? Let me just focus my camera here a second. And okay, yes. Is Hollywood going to give this, or the theater companies in the United States going to give this its fair share? And the only way I can see that it's going to allow a Chinese movie into the theaters is if it has a collaboration with a North American studio. And if it doesn't, maybe this movie could go down as a threat to national security, just like TikTok, and it could be R-rated or banned in the studios in North America. Do not be surprised, or it might even be tariffed out of the studios. Thoughts on that? I'm not far off on that, Carl.
Well, as Sony Pictures, as I understand, they bought the overseas distribution rights. So there will be the ones. There will be the one distribute showing in places like Southeast Asia, for example, Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, and as well as the United States. So it depends on it will depend on the Sony Pictures. But I think what they're trying to do when they say limited release is they'll probably do what traditionally how they release Chinese blockbusters. So we'll release it in select like the big metropolitan U.S. cities with large Chinese population. That's what AMC used to do. After AMC got bought out by Chinese Wanda Group, that's when they start bringing Chinese film to North American theater for the first time. And so if you want to see Chinese blockbuster in United States, you got to find your closest AMC that's located in a large city with significant Chinese population. So that means if you live in LA, you're probably in luck. If you live in LA, New York, San Francisco, but if you're outside that area, yeah, you should be okay. But if you live in like Des Moines, Iowa, or something, if you live in like Land's End, Michigan,
it's a threat to national security. It's a threat to national security.
So I think that's probably the strategy they're going to follow. They're going to release it in cities that with large Chinese population, they expect the movie will do well. Unless so the exception to that I could think of was that not Zhang Yimou movie, Anne Lee movie, Flying Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Hidden Dragon.
That was that was also pushed by Sony Pictures. Somehow, but that picture somehow got the big push in North America. Then everybody heard about it, and it was a big box office success. But so I don't know what they're gonna do with this film, because in China and a lot of the Chinese influenced regions like Southeast Asia, for example, we know it's going to be a success because everybody was familiar with the Ne Zha story. Many of them have already seen Ne Zha 1. By the way, Ne Zha 1, I think it's available on either Amazon Prime or Netflix. People can check it out. I highly recommend it. I saw the first movie; it was great. It was a great movie. So it's not just for children. And
are they gonna add 25% tariff to it?
Well, one of the reason Ne Zha 1 now you I lost my train of thought. But one of the
I know you did.
Yeah, one of the reason Ne Zha 1 did well is because they it's a popular story. Everyone already know that IP, and everyone were excited to see what happened, and then it spread by word of mouth. And another reason Ne Zha 2 did spectacularly well is it's a film for the whole family. It's Chinese New Year, so everyone dragged all their kids, all their grandparents, everybody went to the movie theaters. It's a fun for the whole family event. It's like
well timed.
Yeah, and so this is one reason for its success. And on top of that, it has done really well. It was executed very well. I mean, the Chinese animation industry have really,
Yeah.
grow leap and bounds in the recent years. They
Yeah.
kind of overgrow out of like the shadow of Disney or Japanese anime, like really come into a force of its own. And the Chinese film market has grown so much bigger. I mean, one of the reasons Ne Zha 2 did so well is because they don't need to hit it out of the park in theaters in North America to make a huge profit
Right.
like they already do. They can just do well in China, and they're already making $1
Yeah.
billion.
Right.
This is the force of the Chinese consumer market. Go ahead.
I want to discuss the
Go ahead.
film market, how it works. A lot of the film productions over the last 10 years have been financed by a lot of Chinese backers. Alibaba Studios were really big in financing that. You see in North America, it's big names like Netflix, it's big names like Amazon, it's big names like Apple. The traditional way, even going to hedge funds. Hedge funds actually put up capital for these films. It's a mitigated risk, and they're going to say, "Okay, let's go. Let's fire away." But I think we've seen a transfer of a lot of these animation brains, we'll call it. The United States is suffering a brain drain when it comes to talent that was, so handsomely offered to the American market with engineers. These people are coming back to their homeland. We shouldn't be surprised that we are seeing, amazing things happen here. It's a country that produces, just like India produces, a lot of engineers worldwide. And they're coming back and they're, making success of it. I've just read that this will be released, and I can understand why it wasn't released this weekend in the United States, because you have the Super Bowl. But next weekend, it's going to be released in North American markets, Canada, the United States, and the collective West countries, we'll call it. And they will launch it on Valentine's Day, which is probably a very interesting day. We'll call it date night for every North American person. That is either a boyfriend, girlfriend, a husband, wife, or whoever. That's a special evening, and probably dinner followed up by a movie. So I can see why they're going to open it up on Valentine's Day. It's going to be interesting to see how the Americans market this to their theaters. I'll give you the last say on it, and we'll wrap it up for this video. It's always great to bring you on. We chatted about Wukong last time in its success in the animation video game sector. There is more to come of this. We're hearing some more interesting things in other sectors, not just this animation. But wow, I think, and you can quote me on this, I have a feeling that if this movie makes a big splash in North America, they're going to target these on the tariff list. I guarantee you. How they do that? Well, they might say, they're distributing technology across the sea. They will find some way to try to slow it down, because they just can't handle another wind coming out of China. Over you, Carl. I'll let you shut her down and tell us everything else you want to tell us.
Well, I mean, that kind of happened in the other area. For example, the Top Gun sequel, Maverick, was originally financed by China, by Chinese internet giant Tencent, and Tencent was forced to pull out because a lot of especially ultra conservative in U.S. are like, oh no, the Chinese are gonna shove down CCP propaganda down our throats through Hollywood. So they forced Tencent to divest from Top Gun Maverick. When everyone knows Tencent was just in it to make money. They just invested in Maverick because they thought that film was gonna do well. So now with all this investment channel blocked in North America. And with the Chinese film market red hot, this is why a lot of the Chinese money are coming home. The Chinese money are coming home to invest in the home market, and this is why I expect to see great things in the coming years. When there's a lot more capital, a lot of Chinese money, instead of pouring to Hollywood to finance Top Guns, which is real propaganda for the U.S. Navy. So now they're coming into the Chinese film market to finance Chinese film projects like the Ne Zha series, like the Creation of God series, and these are all the movies that's based on Chinese heritage, Chinese mythology, tells Chinese story, and they are well received by Chinese audience, as evidenced by
Terrific,
the
eh?
box office. So I look forward to great things coming out of the Chinese film market in the next few years.
Well, that's fantastic. Carl, thanks again for taking some of your time out. And everybody, you find Carl Zha. He is on YouTube under what handle, Carl?
Carl Zha. On Twitter, I'm just Carl Zha. On YouTube, I'm also
Okay.
Carl Zha. And you can
I-
also find me on Patreon. On Patreon, my podcast, Silk and Steel podcast, is on Patreon for my
There it is.
patrons. You can just search Silk. The first result is Silk and Steel podcast on Patreon.
Terrific. We'll do that. We'll put the links in the description. Stick around backstage. We'll chat with you in a moment. One sec. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.